know of one. Helen Crow, Dan Crow's lovely wife, is seated at the front table. Helen, would you please stand? Any other guests? Yes.
Yes, Tom Martin is on the faculty at Washington Law School and recently retired.
And hopefully you soon be a member of the Topeka Bar Association.
I hope so too, if you'll have.
We will have. Today is a special tribute to the Honorable Sam A. Crow, who recently passed in December of 22. As most of you know, Judge Crow served as a federal judge for over 26 years, from 1981 to 1996 as a federal district court judge, and then took senior status in 1996. Today is a special tribute to him by three speakers that will come forward quickly. But before I get to that, I want to remind everybody of the bar, this is the time to do our annual awards. Information is on the TBA website, but the four awards are the Young Lawyer Award, the Waddy Shaw Service to the Bar Award, and the E. Newton Vickers Civility Award. And the last is the Liberty Bell Award that goes to an organization that works closely with the bar for the betterment of justice. That being said, I'm ready to introduce our first speaker, who will be Martin Albrecht, a longtime law clerk and Judge Crow. Martin, would you please come forward?
I guess I should define what a long time is. 37 plus years. And it's an honor to be here today, to be invited to make a few comments during this tribute. While Judge Crow was always up for any excuse to celebrate someone or something like today, he preferred learning something new about talking about himself. With a flurry of questions, he would redirect the topic of conversation to something more suitable than himself. It's no surprise then that it took over 20 years to complete Judge Crow's official court biography. And that included him asking me in the end to complete the biography that a hired historian had started quite a few years before. I was honored by the request because it gave me a venue for expressing just how wonderful it was to work for someone like Judge Crow. And so today is icing on the cake for me because I get to reveal just how high a regard that Judge Crow had for the bar youth. He always took the pride in the bar and the vital role it plays in our judicial system. He often expressed how the bar and bench shared responsibility for keeping up the professionalism and mutual respect so foundational to a well-functioning judicial system. And I believe these thoughts were behind his desire to become a judge, and that they eventually defined his work from the bench. In the biography, this is one of the themes that begins with a story from his longtime secretary, legal assistant, Bev Rector. She worked for him 46 years before she retired in 2007. She recalled from her earlier days attending George Templer's swearing-in ceremony in the old federal courthouse, now the post office, soon not to be. She found herself so impressed by the setting and the decorum and the respect that was given by everybody involved that she noticed that same look in her boss's eye. And so on the way back from the ceremony, they were walking back, she asked him if he wanted to be a federal judge someday. She remembers his answer, yes, you bet. And as Bev knows, once her boss decided he wanted something, his enthusiasm for getting it rarely waned. In June of 1973, Crow was selected as a part-time United States magistrate judge, taking over the Topeka docket. He was appointed full-time magistrate in September of 1975, approximately 1 month after Richard Rogers replaced Judge George Templer, who had taken senior status. Crow's magistrate duties didn't change much except for making bi-weekly trips to Fort Riley to handle complaints and violations on the military base. He spoke fondly of those Fort Riley days, and the chance to use his JAG counsel experience. During this time, Judge traveled to Minot, North Dakota, to visit his oldest son who was stationed there. When he flew home from Minot International Airport, didn't know there was one, he unfortunately left his work briefcase behind in the airport. Security procedures being what they were at the time, personnel became suspicious of that unattended briefcase, so it was removed to a different location and opened with a shotgun blast. While closing the judge's chambers, we came across that briefcase, which he saved, which contained the front page article from the Minot Daily News. Didn't know they had a Daily News either. And on this airport security incident, it said that the briefcase owner was determined to be a federal judge from Kansas. Oops. Unfortunately, Judge Crow's name wasn't included in it, though. After making several unsuccessful applications to different federal bench openings, the circumstances were just right, and he got that all-important phone call from President Reagan on November 23rd, 1981, that he would be the president's nomination to the Kansas District Court vacancy created by Judge Frank Tice, taking senior status. To show you just how smooth the process did work back in the day, even without today's technology, 11 days after the president's phone call, Judge Crow appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee with 5 other federal court nominees. Senator Dole, Crow's law school classmate, introduced him to the committee's chair, Strom Thurmond. 5 days after that, the Senate, by unanimous vote, confirmed the appointment of Crow, and President Reagan signed the appointment the next day on December 10th. Only 17 days passed from the president's phone call to his signature. And just 11 days after that, Judge Crow had his judicial installation ceremony on December 22nd at the Frank Carlson Building. Judge Templer emphasized in his comments at the ceremony that Judge Crow was the first native Topekan appointed to that federal bench. Judge Crow relished this honor. And when it was his turn to speak, Crow described his mixed feelings over leaving Topeka for Wichita, as he regarded the Topeka Bar as the best, and his opinion never changed. It's hard to summarize almost 41 years on the federal district court bench. Telling you the number of cases, orders, and trials seems pointless, as those numbers never really mattered to Judge Crow. To him, it was the people that mattered. His court family working beside him, the attorneys coming before him, and the others participating and watching. For those who worked with him, Judge Crow made you feel like family, never failing to show his appreciation with caring words and thoughtful gifts. All the problems and drudgery common to any work seemed like nothing compared to the feelings of family that he brought and nurtured in the workplace. He made sure you knew that he recognized your gifts and that they were special to him. And he treated everyone the same way, like family. Over the years, all I have shared, everyone that I've been around has shared how at different times they felt special just being around him and how much he made them feel valued. For the attorneys, Judge Crow never stopped seeing himself as a friend and part of the bar, greatly respecting every attorney he met. Before I left on a family vacation, he would always give me the same advice. Remember, if you get into any trouble, you can call a member of the local bar. They are good people ready to help. And Judge Crow believed that, truly, and it's evidenced by how he ran his court. He valued counsel's opinions, their time and commitment to their clients, their real life struggles in keeping up their practices. He never failed to give them the benefit of every reasonable doubt. He was reticent in criticizing any attorney. He modeled civility and courtesy in the courtroom to the point that others could not help but follow his example. Over those decades, I can only remember a handful of times when the attorneys did not accept the judge's rulings with respect and maturity. And even on those occasions, the judge never let the situation deteriorate by reacting to the comments. Nor did he miss any opportunity to welcome new attorneys. For many years, he invited the new Topeka attorneys to a brown bag lunch in his chambers. And true to his humble roots, he would always tell the new lawyers that from his first week of practicing law, he made $5. He was committed to helping the bar keep up the standards of integrity and professionalism by playing an instrumental role in forming and supporting the local Inns of Court chapter, which now bears his name. Judge Crow avoided taking himself more seriously than the proceedings before him. For example, in Wichita, during that longest jury trial that we had, it lasted over 3 months. involved attorneys from both coasts. There was a bench conference over an objection to a question propounded. And after ruling and waiting for all the counsel to return to their places, Judge Crowe asked counsel to restate the question as he thought it had only been half asked. And yes, the courtroom burst into laughter, and with Judge Crowe laughing as hard as everyone. And when the courtroom quieted, the San Francisco attorney, who had quite a personality, caused another outburst by admitting his question had been poorly asked. Judge Crowe's other notable civil case was the Koch brothers litigation that was filed in 1985, but did not go to trial until 1998. Judge Crowe would say he was glad to have only one such case while he was on the bench. And after it was over, he was invited by the 10th Circuit to try a complex antitrust case in Wyoming. And despite his love of cowboys in Wyoming, he quickly turned down the offer. And as for all people, those participating and those watching, Judge Crowe made a point of greeting everyone with respect, making sure they knew that they had his attention and that he valued what they were saying and thinking. Judge Crowe had a captivating charm. His beaming smile, his mellifluous voice, and his warm handshake left you relaxed and at ease. When he met someone on the street, often he would say, "I'm Sam Crowe. I work for you." Judge Crowe practiced a humility that kept him grounded in his work, that put following and applying the law first and always above his own interests. And he never abandoned his common sense, but regarded it as one of his most valued tools. Nor did his fidelity to justice ever wane. While that may seem like something someone in my position must say, it's still true. Judge Crowe's love of his country, his devotion to the judicial oath, and his respect for the bar kept him from doing anything else. To him, every case deserved his full attention and was his chance to follow the law in doing what was right, as difficult as it could be at times. And for as long as his eyesight allowed him, he was in the courtroom handling cases well into his 80s. At the celebration of his 85th birthday and his 30 years on the bench, we noted that Judge Crowe had the same birthday as Ann Davis, the actress who played Alice the Maid in the Brady Bunch television show. We pointed out that though Judge Crowe did not know much about cooking or doing laundry, he and Alice shared other qualities, and among them were these. You carry yourself with a humility that brings out the best in others. You're always there with a word of encouragement and support, and you do so in a common sense, down-to-earth way. It is this that makes every difference in how you're received. To all matters that come before you, there's a sense of fair play and justice that is never questioned. And in the end, there is one thing that captivates us all: your simple and unassuming charm, your love for family and friends, and your wish to celebrate with us. As part of the Crowe court family, I'm humbled to be with you today and to celebrate and honor Judge Crowe and his well-lived life. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Our next speaker from the U.S. Attorney's Office will be Jared May.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is truly an honor to be able to talk for a few minutes about my experience, and I think the experience of a lot of us who had an opportunity to practice in front of Judge Crowe. Last night we had a wonderful time with ends of court and honoring Judge Crowe for his starting the ends of court program. A lot of people realize that we have, I would put this up against any in the court world. We are a wonderful program and have for years they produced some of the greatest lawyers in Topeka, and just the camaraderie and what we have in Topeka really is instilled in all of us because of what Judge Crowe was willing to do. So in honor of that, I dusted off all of my cufflinks this morning. I've got my vote Republican cufflinks. So I thought that would be the most appropriate. But it was last night. It was interesting because Judge Gardner was passed around the book that about Judge Crow, and in thumbing through that, I came across Judge Crow's time at the U.S. Army's Judge Advocate General School, which I attended in 2000. And it was fascinating to see that the certificates that we receive as first lieutenants coming out of the JAG school have not changed one bit. And it was really neat to see that it is at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, and I suspect at the time that he went through the JAG school, that it was at the actual law school at the University of Virginia. Now it's its own facility that is essentially attached to the law school. The Judge Advocate General School is of course one of the more prestigious locations, and for Judge Crow to go through that in the early days had to have been fascinating. And when I get back there, I'm going to try to look up to see exactly what class he was in. I was class 154 coming out of the JAG school, and I'll be curious to see what his class number was. But it was fascinating to see that. And I have to tell you, as a judge advocate, and being able to practice not only in front of Judge Crow, but in front of Judge Rogers as well, for two individuals coming out of the greatest generation, to practice in front of them, for someone like myself who has devoted a large part of his professional career to the military, is simply really unparalleled for any lawyer in the United States to be able to do that, because of the pride that someone like me feels for individuals who gave so much during that time frame. And it really was an honor, and I doubt that there are few lawyers in the United States that can say that they practiced in front of individuals who came from that generation and served so honorably. So it meant a lot for me to be able to practice in front of Judge Crow because of his service. And at the same time, to say that, with Judge Rogers, and at the same time with Judge Brown, three of the, honestly, three of the most amazing judges in the history of the federal judiciary. And I always take time to, when we have out-of-state attorneys and other individuals, usually agents and other individuals from outside of the district, I always take some time to walk them past Judge Crow, Judge Rogers, and Judge Brown. And I said, you ought to read these biographies. And I said, Judge Brown alone, I said, look at the date that he was appointed. I said, you're a federal agent. He was appointed to the bench 60 years before Miranda became the law. I said, we've had some really storied individuals who have sat on the bench in Kansas, and Judge Crow is in that unparalleled position of being one of the most important judges in the history of the state. And I say that with all sincerity. Judge Crow has left a footprint on the legal institution in Kansas I think that most cannot. And to be able to practice in front of Judge Crow has been a true honor. I will tell you, having practiced in front of Judge Crow toward the sort of the end of his career and about midpoint in my career, when I transferred from the Attorney General's office to the U.S. Attorney's office, I was not familiar with some of the, shall we say, traditions that Judge Crow put on. One of those being that I didn't know we went back to chambers before we started the hearing. That was always an interesting thing the first time I went back for that, because I did not know that was going to happen. Nobody warned me of that. And, we come in and sit down, and I'm not sure exactly why we're there. And Judge, his great tone says, "Gentlemen, what are we doing today?" I whip my head to the defense attorney and basically give him a look like, "I'll let your guy plead to anything if you just take over from here." I have no idea how to it seems to be intent that he wants an answer, and I don't know that I can give it to him. And so he always made you feel part of a family. And I'll never forget the times that we would see Judge in the hallways. You don't pass Judge in the hallways. You're stopping for a conversation, and it's going to be a great conversation. And you always look forward to that. And those are the memories that we all have with Judge Crow, I think, more than anything. And I'll leave you with this, because this is one thing that I'll never forget. And this is honestly true when you think about the federal judiciary, you know, sort of writ large. We had a defendant who was a cooperating defendant, and we had gone through I think some hearing with them, and we came down and he wanted to do a standard debrief with the U.S. Attorney's Office and give information. And I remember him sitting down and he goes, I've never been in court before, but he goes, Judge Crow looks exactly like what I thought a federal judge would look like. And I said, you know, when you think about it, that is really true. He's got that great coif of hair. It's, you know, that extremely distinguished look. And you think about it, but for all of us that practiced in front of him, you know, we sort of got used to that. But you think about it in the context of someone isn't in the legal community, but otherwise would be in the courtroom. Looking at that at the first time, and he just does look like what a federal judge would look like. And it really always stuck with me that somebody would say that. And it really is true. And I really appreciate the opportunity to tell you a few of these stories and how much of an honor it was for me to practice in front of Judge Crow. He really does. He does leave a legacy that is really unparalleled in the state. And for all of us to have a chance to practice in front of him, we will all cherish those memories. Thank you all.
Our last speaker today will be Dan Crow, Judge Crow's youngest son. Most of you know Dan is a member of the Alderson firm that does primarily real estate work. I happen to know him outside of the office. Some of us on the weekend refer to Dan as Sweet Swinging Dan. Dan, as some of you might know, has been the recipient of many Topeka Bar Association golf winnings, along with his partner, predecessor in speech, Jared Magg and Pat Haley, who just congratulated Jared. So Sweet Swinging Dan is next up. Dan, welcome aboard.
And the rest of that story, Greg, is that you also are on that team, and somehow we agree. But I love Greg. I've known Greg for a long time, and I love you guys. Thank you for being here today. As Martin said, and very artfully, and Jared, thank you for your comments. This is a nice tribute to my father. This is, as Martin said, he loved you guys. He thought that Topeka Bar Association was the most special, and you guys as members were the most special. He loved being a lawyer. He relished, you know, our United States Constitution, which everybody should have somewhere on their table. You would meet him and he would say, "Hi, I'm Sam Crow. Do you have a pocket copy of the United States?" He give out gazillions of these. And so in his honor and his in memory, take the United States Constitution with you. If you already have one, give it to somebody and think of Sam Crow. My job here today is to not talk about Sam Crow as a judge, but is to talk about him as a lawyer. And I will do my best to do justice to that. A lot of you guys are, you know, too young to ever remember meeting my father as a lawyer. He was, as we've heard here today, he was appointed by President Reagan as full-time in 1981, and he was a part-time magistrate prior to that. But from 1952 until then, he practiced law, and he did it with enthusiasm. He practiced law with the theory that everybody deserved zealous advocacy. He practiced law with a passion for making sure that everybody's rights are upheld. He loved his Constitution, and as a judge, his sense of fairness. Everybody talks about in front of his, I think Judge Gardner last night talked about his fairness, and that's true absolutely as a judge, but it's also true as one of the sons of Sam Crow the lawyer. The younger of the two sons of Sam Crow the lawyer. Dad would have this demeanor about him of fairness long before he was a judge. He was destined to be a judge. His fairness was when my brother and I would get in a fight, which did happen. It was always my brother's fault, by the way. Dad would always make sure that when he was trying to decide the resolution of whatever this fight was going to be, he always gave us our day in court. He always gave us an opportunity to say what our side of the story was, and that hit me really, really hard then, and I carry it with me now. How important it was to him that everybody could say what they needed to say and have a full opportunity to say it. If I can rewind a little bit, a lot of you might not know, and let me give you just a little bit of the history of Dad's humble beginnings. No, he was not born in a log cabin next to Abe Lincoln. He was not, but he was born of two parents who were very interesting, very colorful people. A small house at 6th and Western. Dad's bedroom was actually the back porch of the house. The house isn't there anymore. It was actually the back porch of the house where his mother, who was a hairdresser, did her hairdressing routines. So when the hairdressing things went, Dad had to get out of the back porch of his bedroom, and his father, Sam W. Crow, repaired fountain pens for a living. Yeah, that's a job. That's a job. He worked at Hall Stationery right down Kansas Avenue, and he repaired fountain pens for a living. We still have in the basement of my folks' house, you know, some of the old nubs. I think that's what they're called, nubs, whatever they were. That were the, you know, the balloons that would carry the ink that my grandfather would repair these pens with. And Dad didn't make much of a living. Neither did doing the hairdressing stuff in the back of the house. So my grandfather would do things like race carrier pigeons or homing pigeons, and maybe occasionally gamble on those. He liked to play cards. I don't know if he played cards for money or not. I'm not saying, but he might. And it left my dad with as an only child, it left my dad with all kinds of spirit of adventure. And he had a lot of adventures. He was, and anything, like I think Martin said, he set his mind to doing something, he did it. He wanted to be the marble champion of the block. Now, most of you I look out there and say, you know, you weren't even born when Dad became, you know, when he was still a lawyer. So you won't know that back in those days, you'd shoot marbles. You'd shoot marbles with your buddies, and the winners got to take home all of the marbles. You heard all the marbles? Well, Dad took home all the marbles. Quite a bit. We have a bag of marbles at home in our basement for whatever reason that we still have from Dad's victories as a marble shooter. And he used to know the shooters from the, and he really was good. Yo-yos. He loved yo-yos. And as a kid, he would win state or city and county titles. They're yo-yo competitions. And into his 80s. You know, you give him a yo-yo and stand back. I'm not sure exactly how that yo-yo was going to fly, but I guarantee you were going to be entertained by his yo-yo skill. His mother wanted him to be a physician. His mother pushed hard that he would be a physician. So at 15, he moved from the house and moved into the Jane C. Stormont Hospital, which was at the time on the corner of 3rd and Greenwood, which is across the street from where Helen and I currently live. And Dad would help do whatever the hospital folks needed him to do. I think his official title might have been orderly. I don't know. He was a janitor. He would help do whatever the nurses needed him to do, the cleanup work, the crummy work that nobody else wanted to do in the hospital. He did it. He wanted to see what it was like to be a physician. He made friends with a lot of physicians. They liked him. Sometimes his duties expanded beyond janitorial, and in fact, a couple of the OBGYNs who liked him a lot invited him into the delivery room when they were delivering babies. And Dad had some pretty colorful stories about the first several babies that Dad, delivered as a 15-year-old intern there in the hospital. With all due respect to the medical folks, it really bothered me to hear it. My father. That was a simpler day, that was a simpler age, but Dad said it's probably pretty easy, you just stand there. I don't know if that's true or not, that's what he said. I'm not done. So anyway, the war came, Dad graduated Topeka High School, proud to be High alum, proud Topekan. Joined the Navy and came back when the GI Bill and was able to go to KU, and at KU, his passion turned from medicine to law. He had a professor there that inspired him to be a lawyer. And Dad, like he did with everything, pursued it with enthusiasm. His early days, I didn't know he made $5 that first day. I didn't know he made any money. He took clients that had no money. And to pause for just a second, please, I cannot possibly talk about my dad as a lawyer without talking about my mother. She was amazing. They were a team. They worked together. And my poor mother had to put up with my brother and me. My dad would go out and work. My brother would always get in trouble. I'd always try to get him. And she would have to put up with the two boys who were 13 months apart. And I look back on that and I just want to apologize every single day that your mother. But she was the support. She was the rock. She was the one at home taking care of the two crazy boys. And Dad was building his career, and he worked hard to build that career. And when he started, like I say, he really didn't have any money. He didn't really have any clients. His mentor, Ed Rooney, he just loved and admired that. That didn't mean he had clients. I mean, in those days, you did anything you could. And so he would take a lot of clients with people who had no money. He would when he was one of his jobs working on the docks at Santa Fe during his law school days, he met some people and he promised them that he would provide them legal fee services for free forever because they worked a lot harder than lawyers. That's what I said. And they did. And so that reputation sort of grew. So he had a lot of people come to him who absolutely had no money. But that didn't bother him. He believed that what people were entitled to was a zealous advocacy, and that's what he gave. So occasionally there would be some money coming in, but it wasn't generally, well, it wasn't money. It was chickens or, maybe a piece of furniture. Or it wouldn't be uncommon that my brother and I would get home from school and there'd be a jalopy in the driveway that hadn't been there in the morning. That was the fee that Dad was able to get out of his legal representation. There were lots and lots of those kinds of things, and that meant that some of the people he represented weren't maybe the country club sat. Some of these people might not have been the most upstanding citizens. Some of them might have been accused of murder. Some of them, he had a very active criminal practice in the 60s and 70s that was sort of well known hereabouts. And a lot of those people who had no money did know where he lived. I mean, that was back in the day also where everybody had a landline phone and the phone would ring, you'd answer. So at midnight, people would call and need Attorney Crow. About dinner time, a lot of those people would show up at our house and say, I need to talk to Attorney Crow about this particular problem. And my mom, bless her heart, all 4'11" of her, would say, well, we're just about ready to have dinner. Would you like to join us? And so we had some really interesting dinner guests. Dad believed in representing them and then believed thoroughly that they needed and were entitled to that representation. As a lawyer, he loved the Topeka Bar. As a lawyer, he loved the purpose that lawyers served in our culture, the freedom fighters, the people who were preserving the rights for people who couldn't fight for themselves. And I think he probably carried that into the federal bench. I don't know. I've never practiced in front of him. But people tell me that sense of fairness and that sense of entitlement to having a fair hearing was something that he fully enforced in practice. He was so proud of our country, so proud of our state, and so very proud to be American. He would begin every family meal with a toast. Sometimes several toasts. But it would always begin with a salute to the United States Constitution. A salute to our military, to our first responders, to our police, to our firemen. Always a salute to his wife, Ruthie. And to family and friends. And you guys are family and friends. So on behalf of my father, I had a toast, I would give you a toast. Please raise a glass. Please toast with me. Sam Crow, family and friends, and the Topeka Bar Association.
Here, here.
I forgot, one of the things that Dad wanted to be sure of upon his passing was to make a gift to the Topeka Bar Association in the name of not only him, but his Ruth, so from Sam and Ruth Crow, and from our family to the bar. It's, he thanks you for this.
Thank you, Jared, and thank you, Dan, for your fine talk about the Honorable Sam A. Crow, who we will all remember. Thanks for coming and hope to see you next month.